Hello and welcome to the 100 Indie Artists Project. This is a music project designed for and by independent artists to help you firstly get to know some of the incredible musicians in your community, as well as get to know some insights and some tools that you can take on board with your own musical marketing journey. Tell us about who you are as an artist and your background.
Hey, I'm Luna Keller. I'm an indie artist, singer-songwriter. I do sort of a mix of, I guess, folk and pop, maybe. Genres are hard. I've started writing songs, and I think the main thing for me that I can definitely define myself, label myself at, is a songwriter. When I was 14, I discovered writing songs, and it was just a revelation, to be honest. I had tried to play instruments before, and it never really clicked. But when I realized that I can just put my innermost thoughts into these things. I was gonna say song vomit, which is a little joke call that we say amongst songwriters sometimes, where it's just like all the emotions onto the paper. When I realized that was a possibility, it became a big part of me. And I think even if I wasn't doing this for a living, which I'm very fortunate to be doing, I would still be songwriting and telling my stories. And my favorite thing about it is connecting. So when I finished school, I asked my parents, can I take a year off, try to make a living from this thing that I absolutely adore? And they were incredibly cool and said, yeah. And ever since, now is it 3 years later? I think it's 3 years later, maybe even 4. I'm still doing it. I'm playing house shows. I'm playing little festivals this summer, which I'm really excited about. And I'm songwriting a lot. And I was really fortunate to have that support from home. My dad has a home studio, and I released my first album in April. We recorded that one together. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey so far, and I'm excited to see where else it takes me.
What musical projects are you working on right now?
That's an exciting question. As I said, I just released my album in April, and now I'm working on the next one because, never rest, never stop. I write a lot of songs. I've written over 400. Most of them are pretty bad, to be fair. But what that means is that I'm always behind on recording. So when I'm recording one album, I'm already excited about the next one. And I've been excited about recording this album for some time. The album that I'm working on at the moment is called Ocean Inside of Me. And it's a very different album, a bit more on the melancholic and sad side. It has some really personal and slightly painful songs on it for me, but I found that those can be the most powerful. So I'm really excited about sharing that one. It'll probably take a little till I finish it, probably release it next year. Until then, I'm working on some singles to put in between, and a collab that I'm really excited about with a wonderful artist called Dom Malin, which I believe was interviewed on this series as well.
Where do you feel that you're at in your musical journey right now, and where would you like to get to?
I think I'm not at the beginning anymore, which I feel like very recently I would have still said I'm at the beginning, but I feel like I'm at a point where I have already created a place, I'm not starting from zero. I have wonderful people to work with. I have my first contacts. I have a certain security, a certain audience of people that support me, and I feel very, very blessed to have that. That being said, of course, there's always an infinite amount of growth or of things that could happen. To be honest, I think I've let go a little bit of it. Like, I used to think I have this goal of reaching a certain size of stage or whatever, and now I'm just, happy in the sense of my goal is to make a living of my music and to do what I love full time for my whole life. It doesn't need to be exponential growth. I don't need to be famous. I don't need to win a Grammy. I mean, if those things happen, I won't be particularly sad, don't get me wrong, but they're not what I need to be fulfilled. I'm already fulfilled. So where am I in my journey? I'm on it. I'm doing what I love. I'm very happy, and I'm going to keep enjoying that moment and see where it takes me. I'm not mad at not having everything figured out or not knowing exactly where it's going to take me, because usually the nicest things that have happened to me so far on my journey have been those that I didn't plan. So yeah, I'm at a point where I'm ready to just follow the flow and enjoy what I do.
What do you love most about being an independent artist?
I think the connection, the community that you have, you're not behind a label or behind a wall, it's just you. So you have a very direct connection both to people listening, to the people that you work with, to everyone. There's like a very real and direct connection to everyone, which is so lovely because you get to meet all these amazing people, you get to talk to them, you get to be inspired by them and build beautiful friendships. And I feel very appreciated in that community, and I appreciate that community so much. Like, it's a real blessing to know that I'm in this group of people that all work for their music, that work for their art, that are passionate about music and are making things happen. And I think that is probably my favorite part of being an indie artist. Although there is a lot of other things, like just the independence and freedom that it gives you, where you kind of can decide what I was saying just in a previous question. I can just decide to let go of that flow. I don't have a marketing team behind me or anyone behind me who's like, you gotta release 5,000 albums and make like all of this money or whatever. I can just be like, I'm just gonna do what's fun to me, and as long as I can make a living from it, that's okay. So I guess the freedom would be a close second to those connections in my favorite things about being an indie artist.
What do you find the most challenging about being an independent artist?
I'm a person that likes wearing hats. Like, this is one of my hats. It's not my like hat that everyone always sees me in, which is this one. Yes, I have all my hats next to me in my cellar. This is my cellar that I make music in. But yeah, wearing many hats, many hats, is probably the hardest thing for me, because I tend to like to do things in the best way possible, but there is so much to do that you just need to let go of things so often. And it's so easy to get overwhelmed because you're not just being an artist, you're being a graphic designer, you're being a marketer, you're being a booker, you're being... what are you not, right? So there is a lot. There is a lot that you need to focus on, and I think my biggest challenge sometimes is to find that balance. Like, I've had times where I was really close to burning out because I was not doing a lot of music and I was just focused on all of these other things, and I didn't really find the balance that I wanted. So that would probably be the biggest challenge for me, to wear the many hats and to still get everything done and to not lose the joy of doing all the things, because sometimes it's just so much that you could potentially do. Because that's the thing about being an indie artist, you don't have a limit. You could theoretically work 24/7 for your music, and that would be possible. You would never run out of things to do.
What has been your experience in marketing and promoting your music?
Wow, that's a very broad question. I think my experience has been that when I focused on numbers, it wasn't really good for me. What I really think is worth focusing on when marketing is the true connections, the people that actually listen to your music, want to know when you release your next song, people that are actually interested in knowing who you are and supporting you. I think that's a focus that has shifted. I think at the beginning I was a bit obsessed, like pretty much everyone, with like, how many listens did I have on Spotify? How, like, all these stats and all these things, and you could put pressure on it. You're like, oh my goodness, my monthly listeners are down. Is my music not good anymore? And kind of learning to detach those numbers from your value in marketing and actually realizing that what matters are the people that show up and that really want to listen has been one of the biggest things I've learned when marketing my music. The experience has been frustrating overall in many times, because you put so much time into writing to playlists, which I did. Like, I had this time where I tried to write like 3 playlists a day, and some of them worked, but you get a reply. Sometimes you get a reply months later. And that's another thing that I've really learned from marketing. Sometimes you think that this email you sent didn't do anything, but then like months later, it turns out you actually reached someone. So it's really hard to keep track of your success. You always kind of feel like you're just pouring your time into it and like screaming into the void, like, please listen to my music, and just hoping that something comes back. But there are so many ways of reaching those people. And when you do, it's so valuable and wonderful. A huge, I think, change and shift for me in that was when I started streaming on Twitch about a year and a couple of months ago, 2-3 months ago, a year and 3 months, I think, because that platform allowed me to truly see those people and be like, wow, I have a community here. And that line between marketing and just connecting and building relationships with people, it gets a bit blurry, and it's an interesting balance to find. It's definitely quite fascinating how it's changing as well at the moment. So my overall experience marketing has been a little overwhelming, but I learned a lot about myself and I learned a lot about the things that matter. So I don't think that that time was necessarily wasted. And don't get me wrong, ads and playlists and things are still stuff that I do. I just don't put as much focus on them anymore.
What has been one thing you've learnt along the way that has been the biggest game changer for you in music marketing?
So yes, the one thing that changed, as I said, is that change of focus of being like, I don't need a giant amount of streams. I just need a couple of people that really want to know what I'm doing. And water. I need water. That really want to know what I'm doing. So yes, that shift of focus of knowing that the few that really appreciate you will be much more valuable and will help you much more than those giant numbers. So I think that's really shifted the way that I approach marketing and the way that I feel about marketing too, because I feel like sometimes it feels so official, the press release and things and stuff. And it's so nice to have this other part where it's just like, hey guys, I really appreciate you and I made a thing. Here's the thing. And you have people that actually are interested in that. So I think it's also obviously a growth thing and something that I can now say from the privilege of having a couple of people that are genuinely interested in what I'm doing.
What has been your experience with building a fan base and what have you learnt along the way?
Building a fan base, I feel like that's such an intimidating thing, right? Like at the beginning, it's like, oh, you need to build a fan base. And the word fans alone, like from self-worth, you're like, I'm just a human being. Why, like having the concept of someone being your fan. I don't know if that's like just me with my little imposter syndrome knocking at my door. It was like, what? A fan base? I think my experience has been that, first of all, you never know how many people you already have that are excited about your music because most of them won't tell you. Like I've had this, and this is something important to remember because I think it can be so frustrating when you feel like no one's listening. There are people listening, sometimes they just don't tell you that they are. Like I've had so many situations where someone was like, 2 years ago, your song helped me through something. And at that time, I was thinking no one is listening to the song, but that person was listening and it was genuinely important to them. So I think that's like one of the things about building a fan base that I found really interesting. You can't really track it and you don't really know who's listening. So how do you know it's working? How do you build it? How do you get people to engage with your content? If I was going to give like the marketing answer that I got in like one of the 5,000 marketing classes that pretty much all indie artists have taken to answer this question, there's like this funnel system, right? Where you like throw something interesting out there, like a cover or a song or something, a single. You get people to just kind of know your name. And then once they know your name, you just keep kind of pulling them closer. So like come to a concert and eventually buy merch or become fans, sign up to your newsletter, all of that stuff, which is definitely really useful and really, really real. And I think maybe I am taking that approach, but I've just always felt like the best way for me to market my music, because it's very personal, and I'm also live on Twitch twice a week where I'm literally just chatting with people. Like I'm very accessible, I'm at a level where people can just write me and I will reply. So I think what I've learned is just to allow connections when it comes to marketing. Not be as afraid. I feel like I was a bit afraid at the beginning of being like, what if I'm like creating these connections with like this purpose? Like what if I'm betraying people by being like, this is marketing? Just kind of blurring that line a little and being like, hey, it's okay to just connect with people and to find the value in that. And I think the best way to build a fan base is to just genuinely be open and interested. Listen to others, listen to what others are doing, reply to comments, be appreciative of the people that like your music. And don't just go out there and be like, here's music, please listen. Be more like, hey, here's a story, here's a connection, find those things. And when people connect with it, then listen to them and appreciate them. And they will come back and they will become your fans or friends or whatever feels right, which is definitely still a line that I'm learning about, for sure.
Earning an income within music can be very challenging and often requires a diverse source of income streams. What are some of the streams of income you have relating to your music?
Whoa, that's a good question. Okay, so income streams. The thing that we all really don't like talking about, which is money, because I feel like most artists that I know, at least for me, it's like money is not a thing that I aspire to have just for the sake of having it. It's a thing that I need to keep doing what I love. So it's not like I'm making music in order to become rich and buy a really nice house or something. I'm making music to sustain myself and my music in a reasonable and comfortable place where I can create and keep doing what I love. So that obviously creates a certain existential dread if you don't get enough money, because you're like, everything that I love depends on it. It's not just an aspiration, it's keep doing what I love. So where does the money come from? For me personally, and again, it's not a one size fits all. It's everyone kind of, I think, needs to find their legs to stand on. But I know how helpful it can be, because many of these revenues for me started because other artists told me, hey, I'm earning money with this. And I was like, oh, cool. So I have a Patreon, which I started, is it 3 years or 2 years ago now? It was a while. The concept of people wanting to support me on Patreon seemed wild at the time, but now it's one of my main income sources, and I'm so grateful for the people that support me there. If you don't know Patreon, it's a great platform people can sign up to, and they can... Excuse me. It's a great platform that people can sign up to, and they can basically support you on a monthly basis, and in return you give them some exclusive content. In my case, I do monthly streams with my Patreons where I just kind of share what I'm working on and give them a behind the scenes. I've done behind the scenes videos, photos of my songbooks, voice memo demos, exclusive access to music and videos and other things. So basically just sort of an inner circle that supports me. So that's one. That one grows from other things. Twitch has become a really good source of income for me since I started on there, which is a live streaming platform. I go live 2 to 3 times a week over there, and people can tip, they can subscribe, they can cheer bits, which is basically an in-platform way of tipping. And people have been wonderfully generous there. I have cried on stream several times because people have been too nice to me. So that's really, really wonderful. Then, of course, live shows. I love playing house concerts and also get booked for certain events and things. I only play originals. I've learned a cover or two for special occasions, but it's just me, my songs, and my stories, and I kind of go to people's living rooms, play some songs, and that's also a great income source. Alongside, and I haven't done as many of these, but I'm doing more now. I'm starting to play first festivals and more venues, some venues and other gigs that I've played, also traveling. I've done a little bit of touring. Last year I was in the UK for a month playing some concerts and shows, also in venues that weren't living rooms, which was really exciting. And I have some touring plans coming up this year too. Sync is another one, so there's a lot. But yeah, Sync, I have some of my songs, most of my songs placed in libraries, both for micro-licensing, and some of them are with publishing companies that represent them. So basically what that means is that they will represent them and pitch them to music supervisors, or in the case of the libraries, be accessible for people that do YouTube videos and all of this with micro-licensing, and I will get money for them being able to use my music in films in those placements. They can be super lucrative, very unpredictable, as pretty much everything, I guess, as an indie artist, which is why it's so important to have many different income sources. Another one is obviously streaming, which, as we all know, doesn't make anyone rich, but I do have, what do I have right now? I think 15,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, and it does give a little bit from those streaming platforms. So yes, I also monetized my YouTube channel. To be honest though, both YouTube and streaming income, I'm completely reinvesting in marketing through Facebook ads and all of that. Because even though I said earlier that those individual connections are more important than numbers, people that book you, people from the outside do look at numbers. So do keep running some ads, do keep doing a little bit to make things look good and to also attract new people that can then come a little closer. So yes, that's another one, and I also sell my CDs, which have been selling a few over Twitch and also at live shows, and signing them, because people almost buy them more as a souvenir now, right? And is there anything else? I also write songs for people sometimes, so people can hire me, tell me this is what's happening, it's a wedding, this is the information about the people, and I will write a song, and then I get paid for that. So a lot of different things. I might have even forgotten a couple, maybe. I don't know. I busk sometimes when I'm traveling. But yeah, I think it's important as an artist because you never know. Like with the pandemic, life was just gone. You never know if one of them is going to stop, and it's up to you to create a certain sense of security. So having loads of sources of income streams, I think, is very recommendable and very important when you're an indie artist.
What advice would you give to an artist that's watching or listening to this who is beginning to embark on their own independent musical journey?
Advice. I always feel like advice. Can I even give advice? I think my best advice that I can give is trust your artistry, trust yourself, and do things. And this might sound like very silly to say, like just do it. Not sponsored here, but just do it in the sense of something that has really changed my success rate and the things that I've ended up doing that I've never dreamed of doing was to do things even when I thought that they wouldn't work, that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't prepared, I remember my very first house show I got booked, that was by a stranger. I'd played a couple like for friends and family before, and I was booked over this platform. I'd never played a house show before, and I was just like, yeah, I can do this. I was shaking. I felt like I could not at all do it. I was terrified, and I did a really good job. And the same people booked me like 4 more times. Yes, 4. And I've played for them, and it's been really wonderful. So when you feel like you can't do it, or you feel like you need to prepare more, and you want to push things back, generally, of course, sometimes maybe you're really not prepared, but generally, just do it. When I started streaming on Twitch, which has now become one of my nicest things in my career, both financially and also emotionally, because I have an amazing community there that I love with all of my heart, I was not ready. I streamed with terrible camera quality. I had no idea how the platform worked, but I just did it. I jumped into the cold water and I kept improving my stream over time. And if I hadn't done that, I had just thought, I'm not ready, who knows if I would be where I am right now with that platform. So in general, I think my best advice, as silly, as simple as it might be, is do the things that you're afraid of. Just go for them, trust yourself, throw yourself at it. Sometimes they won't work out. I've definitely had moments where I jumped in, maybe organized a show that I thought I was ready for and didn't manage to sell it out. Disappointment and things, they happen, and that's okay. But your failure rate is always going to be 100% if you don't do it. And I know that's like a stereotypical thing. Motivational coaches have said like 500 things and 500 times. So one thing, do stuff. The second thing would probably be never forget to be really appreciative of the people that support you and the people that make it possible for you to do what you love. Include them and let them know that you appreciate them, because the moment that you don't, and I've been lucky to have been raised in a way where that hasn't happened, but I've seen other people really lose a lot of great things because they lifted off a little bit and forgot how they got where they were. And honestly, if you nurture and appreciate the relationships with the people that you work with those good people helping you, they will keep being a part of your journey, and it will be really good for them because you're going to be supporting them, you're going to be giving back to them. And really good for you because you'll keep working with these trustworthy people. And as an indie artist wearing so many hats, as I said earlier, having those connections and really appreciating those connections and building those connections of good people to work with that can do the things that you can't, which is another advice. Don't try to do anything, don't try to do everything yourself, It's okay to outsource things. You're one person. And it's much better to outsource something to someone who's incredibly good at it than to kind of half-arse everything just because you want to do everything yourself. It's going to give much better results and be much less stressful. So do stuff, really appreciate and be kind and build those relationships with the people that you love working with. And don't be afraid to outsource things that you feel other people might be able to do a little better. Even if it means swallowing your pride sometimes. Like for me, sometimes it's like, not a bad guitar player, but there's a certain feel in my fingers with some picking parts that I've been like, I don't think I can play this the way that I want it to sound on a song. So I'll let someone else play it. And that's okay. It's okay to not be incredible at everything. No one has it all figured out. So don't feel like you're not good enough to just start today, jump for it, and use the resources that you have to make the best thing that you can. And stay happy. Really prioritize your mental health over anything, because if you don't, that's also just not going to work out. It's really important that you feel good and fulfilled and supported throughout your journey. So take care of yourself, go for it, and you can do it.